Mr. Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell. Do I call you Lieutenant Governor? Do I call you Matt? Mr. Pinnell, coming in here strong.
Yeah.
Where do I start here?
Matt is just fine.
Matt.
That is just fine.
When did you start in politics, man? So it's a wild, from an outsider's stance,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
a guy who really doesn't follow, probably should do more following of politics and where the world's going. But for a guy who doesn't really pay attention on the political side, how did you get involved early on? We're going to be bouncing around here.
Yeah.
So excited about this. Thank you.
Man, I
should have started with thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thanks for coming down the turnpike and figuring out how to park and get into the state capitol.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
So, listen, I've been involved a while.
Okay.
I think I ran for president of the school in like 5th grade at Lee Elementary in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I was involved in middle school. I was involved in high school when I was in student council, and I loved people. I mean, I didn't look at it as politics. I loved theater growing up. I was kind of a drama guy.
Yeah.
And we can get into that a little bit if you want to, but I was actually a drama major in college. Like I was like, I wanted to go to LA and then kind of started kind of working on campaigns, political campaigns, and everything changed.
Okay.
But yeah, I have been involved for a very long time. I've been in public office and in this position for only 5 years. But, unlike some politicians in this building that, they get passionate later in life and they're retired or, their husband or wife wants to kick them out of the house and go do something else, then they run for office. That was not my story. That was not my background. It was, I really had a passion for just hanging out with people and being around people and maybe giving speeches and rallying support for things. I mean, early on, it wasn't about policy.
Right.
But it was about relationship.
You're rooted in Tulsa. You talked about Lee Elementary.
Yeah. Lee to Wilson, man.
Neither
one exists anymore, but yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I see some ORU stuff around here.
Yeah.
Let's start early in life. I always like to kind of uncover parents. Let's start there. Very influential, obviously, to where you are today. Tell me about your mom. Tell me about your dad.
Yeah, super blessed. My mom and dad. My dad was a Springfield, Missouri native.
Okay.
I actually grew up in Springfield. My mom was an Oklahoma girl, Bishop Kelly girl. But my dad grew up in Springfield, was really good at tennis, and got a scholarship to TU.
Okay.
May have heard of it, and he was really good. So he got a full ride to TU and was #1 singles there. And him and my mom met on a blind date. She was an OU. She went to OU, and the rest is history.
Okay.
But my dad ended up getting a law degree at TU.
Okay.
And stayed in Tulsa. So it was an assistant U.S. attorney downtown Tulsa his entire career. Went for a couple judicial positions in his career, didn't get them, but he was a steady hand, steady force for me growing up. Just an awesome guy. Not really friend.
When you say steady, you mean just consistent?
Consistent, very consistent.
Just consistent. He's going to say something.
Yeah,
and he
absolutely. Just steady. Not a real emotional guy, but very steady. I had 2 younger sisters. My mom was a physical therapist.
Okay.
And she actually worked for Department of Human Services most of her career. So I when I announced that I was running for Lieutenant Governor 5 or 6 years ago, I said, I'm very blessed that I was actually raised by public servants.
Okay.
Because my dad could have made a ton more money being in the private sector attorney. But he was an assistant U.S. attorney. He was working for the U.S. government. And got paid, but could have got paid a whole lot more. My mom could have started a physical therapy business and made a whole lot more money, but chose to work for DHS, helping disadvantaged and those with physical handicaps. Her entire career. So I mean, they really did. They had very strong, powerful hearts for people, and there's no doubt that I got some of that from them.
Sure.
So super blessed. They're still married. They're still hang out in Tulsa. My dad he sings in the choir at First Methodist Church.
Oh wow. Okay.
Downtown Tulsa, and my mom still does some contract work as well. So they're awesome.
So growing up, he was maybe more of the you said steady, firm, and then she's more of the caring type.
No doubt. Yeah.
did you gravitate growing up? Were you more like your mom or more like your? I feel like being in the position you are, maybe a little bit of both, but maybe a little bit more on the mom side.
Yeah,
but that's just
no, you nailed it. I mean, my mom was a people pleaser.
Okay.
And certainly I was. I think I got, I feel like I'm getting more of my dad in me now. Getting a little bit more. The longer I'm in this, I get a little bit more cynical.
Okay. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I got a little bit more of my mom in me.
That's cool.
Yeah, particularly growing up, and again, I loved people, I loved entertaining, and again, wanting to be liked by people, and that can be dangerous over time, and we can dig into that if you want to. I've learned that in this position that if you chase applause, it's not. It's not the right direction for a politician. Thankfully, I've learned that, and I've surrounded myself with some good people that put guardrails up in those areas. But it's still hard.
Sure, hard. Were you the kid growing up that was bringing people together, where you had said you had this air about you that loved being around friends and people? And historically, I know even in my own experience, like, you don't know what you're doing really quite yet in life, but you know what you love. And at this point in time in your life, you were rallying. But we can kind of head into that drama kid, that kid who loved plays or whatever. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Was it you like being on stage? You like talking, like you like the authority type of
I
vibes,
did. I did. And again, my dad grew up playing tennis. He taught me how to play tennis. And my whole childhood, I played some team sports as well, but mostly it was tennis, and it was just me playing singles. So it was just me by myself out there in the wind, in the Oklahoma wind that I yelled at my entire childhood. When answering that question, bringing people together, my favorite memories of probably my entire life up to this point was high school tennis, because it was team tennis.
Okay.
And I was playing doubles with one of my best friends, and I had 6 or 7 of my best friends, and we were traveling across the state playing tennis tournaments. I never realized how much I loved tennis or loved sports until I was playing with my buddies. And I loved that. So yes, I certainly think that if I thought about some instances in middle school or high school or for sure college of bringing people together, I did. But it was always about the team for me, and it was always about being around other people that I loved hanging out around with, and that did influence the political fire that I had. Because that's you're rallying support for things. I mean, it's boots on the ground, it's turnout, it's getting people excited to go stand in line and vote for something. I was pretty good at that.
I kind of want to venture right there, because you're talking a little bit about already some seeds early on of that political. At what point in time, maybe it hits you early, maybe it hits you late, at what point in time you're like, you know what, I want to do that, I want to be that, and maybe it was I think I could do better than this guy, or at what point in time did you feel, I want to run, I want to do something for this state?
Yeah, I mean, the great news there, when we all have stories about like a teacher, and I certainly did. Elementary, middle school, high school, there was always somebody that saw something in me that said, maybe we need to push you a little bit of this way, because if we don't, you may end up in jail. Like,
wait,
we got to harness
Why
this.
would you end up in jail? What foolish things were you doing?
I wasn't too foolish, but I was a stupid high school kid. But I think in high school was Bob Beard is his name, and he's still in the Tulsa area, and he got me really involved in student council, and I went to Metro Christian Academy for high school, so we had this evangelism through the arts class that was. We took mission trips, and we did drama, street drama stuff.
Oh yeah,
I loved it. Toy Maker's Dream. I don't know if your
I went on a mission trip. Oh, I mean, I was part of that.
Big Tulsa thing, big Oklahoma thing. Like there was a big musical around it. Anyway, So I got into that with Bob, but Bob saw that in me. I mean, he listen, you've got some leadership ability here, but you got to be. You're a high school boy. So, let's put the bit in the mouth and let's lead you a little bit down that road. He was the one that got me excited about ORU. I mean, I was probably on my way to OU or OSU with all my other buddies. And there was a scholarship that Metro gave out every year to one kid. And I don't know if ORU still does that, but it was a big deal. Almost a full ride. And I got it. And my dad said, "Listen, I'll kill you if you don't take this. Like, I know you want to go to OU or OSU, but do it for just go.
Okay.
And if you don't like it, we'll let you go somewhere else."
Right.
And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved how diverse it was. I loved, I was hanging out with people from Kenya and London and yes, America too, but it was, over 100 countries represented on that campus.
Sure.
And at ORU, there were professors there that further influenced me in positive ways when it came to just, what do you believe, man? What's your true north? What, it was more on the policy side, because for me, again, it was just rallying people, hanging out with people. That's why I love student council. When I got more into college, it was, okay, well, gosh, I can rally people for causes, and started to learn and kind of build a worldview and what I believed. And at ORU, they teach you to make no little plans here. And so everybody at ORU, man, it was not scared of anything. And I miss those days a little bit, because it's hard to remind myself of that every day. But man, I graduated ORU and I was ready to take over the world. And I wasn't scared of anything. It was pretty amazing that what they instill in kids there. So that's really what got me down the political path. Was a teacher in high school that directed me to ORU, and then at ORU there's some awesome professors that kind of helped further develop that in me. Like I said, the first couple years, yes, it was still kind of a drama major, and glad I did that. But junior and senior year is when the pivot happened.
You were talking about you've had a gift to rally these people. Just out of curiosity, what are those early Matt Pinnell rallies? What are these things? What are you trying to sell? Are you trying to sling stuff? Or are you just having a good time and with friends?
Right.
Like, give me some nuggets here. What were you rallying people?
In high school, it was getting the student council convention to Tulsa and to Metro, which had never happened before. And so, we had to do this big pitch and performance to get the convention to Metro, and we did. We pulled it off. But to me, I wasn't thinking. I was excited about bringing that to Metro. But the more I think about it, I'm like, that was helping train me. To influence others.
Would you consider yourself a marketer?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's why I ran for lieutenant governor.
Wow.
It's 100% why I ran for lieutenant governor, because the lieutenant governor position is the sales and marketing job for the state. And, I never got into this to go do other things. People ask me about those things every day, which drives me nuts. But I didn't run to just, start building a political career. You look around me, I get the Oklahoma Fishing Trail logo up. I got, the new Oklahoma welcome signs that we did. So, I spend most of my time as lieutenant governor at how do we make a better first impression? How do we roll out the welcome mat? Because I assure you, no other elected official is thinking about that.
Selling Oklahoma.
A lot of people talk about roads and bridges.
A
lot of people talking about education. A lot of people talking about healthcare. All of those things are very important. But no one else is thinking, do we need a new logo? Because we don't have one. And do we need to fix our welcome centers? Because they kind of suck, And those are the things that, we got more man-made lakes than any other state in the country. Maybe we should talk about fishing to create a bunch of sales tax. Those are the things that I'm extremely passionate about. And I always have people kind of trying to pull me into other issues, and I will engage in other things, of course. But I also know that I'm in charge of some things here, and tell my staff that often. We know what our swim lane is. We know what we're in charge of. If we go down a rabbit trail too much, we're going to wake up and lose months, if not years, of the time that we have in office
headway that we've
to really make a difference in the state.
I love that. So as a marketer, you graduated. You said you graduated ORU, ready to take on the world.
With a public relations advertising degree.
Okay.
We interned at Ackerman and McQueen my senior year, and it was kind of thinking that direction, and then started working on a couple political campaigns. And that was really where, it got injected into my
Like, this is
bloodstream.
it.
It's yeah.
What about it was that big like addiction moment for you of like, I got to be a part of it?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's an adrenaline rush. The whole thing's an adrenaline rush. It really is.
Just because you don't know if your candidate's going to get there?
That's right. It's the unknown. It's every day is something different. You could be putting up yard signs. One day you could be at a debate, doing debate prep or setting up for your candidate the next day. It was all of it. I loved it that, yes, it was different, but the whole thing was, yes, you are building, it's building up to that election night. It's building up to, is this really going to work? All this effort that we put into it, did it really matter? Did the messaging break through? And then you watch the results roll in. I mean, it was pretty intoxicating for me. It really was. And I loved taking someone that, just wanted to make a difference and actually getting them elected into that position. And that was
so it sounds like you were influential early on in doing that.
Yeah.
How many times?
The funny thing is I wasn't influential in getting people elected early on.
Okay.
I worked for a guy that ran for Congress in the 1st Congressional District, Scott Pruitt. He lost to John Sullivan, lost in a runoff. And then I helped a guy named Steve Largent that I really should write a book about that election. The golden boy, Steve Largent, ran for governor. Everybody thought he was going to win the race. And wasn't, he's running against a Brad Henry. Brad Henry who? Who's Brad Henry?
Right.
Little known state senator Brad Henry. Oh, yeah, Brad Henry. Brad Henry was governor then for 8 years. He beat Steve Largent in that race. After that.
Do you ever look back and be like, okay, this was it? Or almost like looking behind and be like, you know what?
Well, it's funny.
What did we do wrong?
I never did. It's crazy you asked that. I wasn't discouraged. I mean, just because one thing led to the next race.
Got it.
And after Steve lost, we did move to D.C., my wife and I, for a couple years. We had just gotten married, and we wanted the experience. We wanted an adventure, young, married.
Sure.
And went out and worked for a couple different trade associations. And we loved that time. We came home to raise a family, and that's really when things escalated because I ran to be the state party chairman for the Oklahoma Republican Party and got elected, was the youngest state chairman in the country, 28, 29 years old. And, the state party activists around the state kind of gave me the keys to the car. But they wanted somebody young. They wanted somebody who's like, man, this guy. And I laugh today because I see those kids today. I'm 45 now. I see those kids today on the campaign trail, and I can see it in their eyes. They're so passionate about these things. And I love that because I'm not that guy anymore. And I have to have... We have to have the next generation actually want to be involved in politics, no matter the aisle or the party that you're involved in. We got to have people step up and get involved here. But it's been, I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis, but it's certainly I am in the middle of my life, I guess, and to see new people and I'm not that.
Do you feel? I mean, 45 is by any that's young in politics in my opinion. And you're already feeling like you're crotchety back there.
I know. It certainly is young compared to the United States Senate.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sure.
But it's getting younger.
Okay.
If you walked around this building, it's pretty young.
Okay.
The state reps and state senators in this building are fairly young.
Is that a good? It feels like that would be a good thing.
I think it is. I do. Again, I want to have some diversity there. It's good to have a retired school teacher that wants to be a state rep or state senator. We need those too. But like Emily Virgin, who was the minority leader in the state. I mean, she got elected out of college and served up here for 12 years. And so she's still super young, but she's done. She had to retire. She got term limited because she had filled out. We have term limits in this in Oklahoma. So she did her 12 years and she's gone. And so now she can live her life and go do something else. So I think it is good to have that perspective and to have people that are young and talented inside the building with those that maybe have lived another couple decades as well.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
We're going to take a left turn here. How'd you meet your wife?
So met my wife at Metro.
Okay. So you guys long time sweethearts?
Long time. Well, I guess so. We'd been married for over 20 years, have 4 kids. We dated a little bit in high school, but we dated throughout college.
Okay.
So
she went to ORU as well?
She went to ORU.
Okay.
and really wasn't her
What was
plan
her major?
either. So
She's a rock star from what I
she's a
understand.
rock
I
star.
want to go into a little bit of that.
Yeah, so
What-
she was marketing.
Okay.
She's really bright, very smart. She actually, her dad's a doctor, and so she thought she wanted to go that direction, and she's like, no, I don't. And so she was marketing or business. I think she was business. I'll tell you the truth, and I'll say it. Hopefully she listens. I mean, she always, college, school to her, I mean, she was always so smart. She didn't really have to study for things. She was that type.
She was. Oh, I hate that.
I know. I know.
I'm not that person either.
And so but college just wasn't her thing. I
Yeah.
mean, like she, not that she was bigger than that, but she knew that she was going to be doing other things in her life. But she went to college because everybody goes to college, and she loved her experience, and also very great personality. People are very attracted to her as well. But she got from her dad this tinkering ability, because her dad's an orthopedic surgeon, and orthopedic surgeons are tinkerers. I mean, they're hammer and chisel, orthopedics.
Yeah.
And so she was an entrepreneur I mean, really, she had it in her DNA. And was really good at it, and tinkered around with a number of different businesses early on in our marriage, and then created what she has today, the Binksy Baby shopping cart hammock. So she patented her this baby product that she invented, created it, branded it,
Good for her.
launched it,
Yeah.
and she's been running a baby product manufacturing business
For how long now?
About 12, 13
Oh
years.
wow. She love it, or she's done with it?
She still loves it. I think, she has one more product that she's trying to develop right now. And I think once she launches that, she may be open to buyout opportunities in a few years. I mean, it was her baby early on.
Sure.
I don't know if she feels that way anymore, because, she can be very content that she built, a world-class business.
Yeah,
And it's a global.
Wow.
But the highs and lows of running a business. I mean, I still remember
yeah.
when we were boxing these things up and putting them in the
garage
back
or
of the
whatever.
minivan,
Yeah.
and taking them to and shipping them around the country and around the world.
Were you that? And we're gonna get in the weeds here, but I love it. Were you that strong force behind her or were you like the unsure husband at that time, or were you like, you got this, babe, like go for it? Like, what was your role as she was building? This was before Lieutenant Governor life, like all that stuff. So
I was certainly encouraging her.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I never gave her any pause.
Okay.
Because again, I mean, I think we both came out of ORU with very little fear. No really fear of failure. If we failed, fine. We'll pivot. We'll go do something else. We were young. We didn't have any money.
Yeah.
We didn't care. We didn't have kids yet.
Right.
We didn't have a whole lot of complexity in our life. And maybe that was the blessing, that it was like, hey man, if this is your dream, let's go after it.
Right.
Now, the Binksy Baby hammock really came out. We did have young kids at that point, but it still wasn't as complicated as life is today.
Yeah.
But no, I was an encourager. But I can tell you, I mean, I was involved, but I got really good at putting boxes together. But like I wasn't, that logo looks good, or you should, I was a little involved on the marketing side. But listen, this was her. I mean, this was her. 99% of it, 100% of it most of the time. So super proud of her.
Yeah. I have 4 kids as well.
Yeah.
I've been married for 13 years. Me and Lexi were just talking about on the way up here. And work life is always been a struggle for me.
Yeah.
I would consider myself a workaholic.
Yeah.
I would consider myself very driven.
Yeah.
And it's within the last 3 to 4 years, I've done a lot better job.
Yeah.
The spouse needs to be obviously very understanding of the drive of her husband. So there's been always a little bit of a struggle with me separating, detaching. As an entrepreneur, it's very hard to clock out, if ever.
Oh.
And my question, obviously, with you guys both in completely different worlds, how has that been? How is that now? How do you guys juggle 4 kids, still be a father at home, as well as being Oklahoma's lieutenant governor?
I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you, man. It's hard. Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. And she's put herself second so that I could be first. I mean, truly. I mean, she sends me out and to have this great experience of being lieutenant governor, and she is. I mean, She deals with, the 4 kids and homework. And I mean, I'm involved, yes, but not at a level that she is. And frankly, probably a lot of spouses, a lot of women are.
Sure.
Certainly those are the arguments. A lot of the arguments that we've had in our marriage is when I am home, being home and communication and, not being a roommate, but being a husband, I mean, and that's no matter what industry, those are things that husband and wives always have to be very territorial about.
Sure.
That you don't turn into roommates, right? And so that's something that, because I leave, I'm here a lot, she's running a business as well. And so we don't want to pass each other in the night, right? So that's something that we are constantly having to be very disciplined on. But the other piece is I mean, listen, she's... she was successful and arguably, I think it's just true, probably could have been even more successful with her business if she was able to go to work every day.
Sure.
But she can't.
Yeah.
Because she did want to be home more. And so that is the other, it's not a struggle because we're honest with each other about that piece. But I do have to make sure that I'm always telling her that, hey, listen, I recognize that honestly, I couldn't do this job because it's not well paid if she wasn't making money too. I mean, we both work because we both have to work for me to have this experience to be a public servant.
Right. Was there anything tactical? I always like getting now we're here. Let's get in the weeds for a second. Was there any tactical things that you did early on in marriage to kind of implement tactical things of I don't know, every night, for me, I'll just give some examples right now. I've learned that putting electronics away, putting phones away, we don't have the phones in the room, that sort of stuff. We don't have a TV in the room. We have segregated time because a lot of times my kids aren't into bed till 8:30 if we're lucky, and they're finally asleep. And then you have this limited hour and a half, and then I'm hitting the hay myself. So I guess what I'm looking for here is as you grew into this relationship, 20 years, it's not an overnight thing for you. I always like to think of I don't know, each husband, each wife has their own drive, but keeping that relationship, keeping that marriage strong is so important.
The love-hate relationship with the phone is real. One of my best friends is an inventor, created the Aero box, ARO, and it's a box where you can put your phone in. It's got an app, shutting the phone down, and really now it's really having more of a conversation of how toxic, what culturally what we've created.
Yes.
It does affect marriages. To see what it's doing to kids as well, just the constant scroll. We could talk about that for hours, but again, it's discipline. You can't. Again, my wife and I we're watching a Focus on the Family marriage series right now. You can't operate vacation to vacation, and a lot of marriages do. Or date night to date night. Date nights are great,
right?
And we're spending time and having a glass of wine, and things are great. And then then you've got another week or two where things aren't great, and then you have another date night, or you have a great vacation. I mean, honestly, we've operated like that in times in our marriage.
Oh, sure.
And so I think where we mess up is not being disciplined day to day. And that's hard. That's the hard part, because you could still shut your phone off all you want, or take a television out of the bedroom. But if you're still not spending time, just prompt conversations with your spouse, then it's still not going to work.
Sure.
And so that's really where having to spend time right now of getting back into those good habits, because you can do other things. You can have apps on your phone to shut the phone. But if you're not living day to day, trying to communicate and make the marriage better, then, the other stuff ain't gonna work.
Sure. Yeah. It's always a constant struggle. I shouldn't say struggle. It's a constant mindful we need to start doing this.
Yeah.
Day to days for me have always been a struggle because it's so easy to be a couple days in to the new year or a couple weeks in. You're like, okay, we're doing it. We're waking up early together. We're spending a little time.
Yeah.
And then a kid gets sick.
Yeah.
And then this happens. And then you're.
That's right.
And you're off the rails.
That's right.
I want to talk about slander.
Yeah.
I want to talk about
Yeah.
political slander.
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
find it so interesting because you get on Facebook, you see all this stuff. I want to hear some of the best stories from you. Maybe not the true. I don't know how true they were. Maybe not even completely left field stuff. Like, what is this guy even talking about or gal?
Yeah.
Like, give me some of that. I know this is kind of a jerk in another direction here, but I always have been very curious because as a servant, as a political figurehead, always on TV. And by the way, I am going to turn this because everybody loves you. Let's be honest for a second. We're going to go there. But first, we got to start with the dirt. Yeah. So I would love to hear some of the things that maybe during a rally, something that was thrown at you. I love that. It's kind of weird stuff.
Well, so it's one of the reasons people aren't as engaged in politics today because politics has changed. I mean, politics definitely has changed. I mean, I've been involved in politics for 15 or 20, over 20 years,
sure.
and it has gotten more divisive. And I'll tell you, not to get too in the weeds on it, because people ask me that all the time. Well, hey, you were state party chair, like you've run campaigns, and so I do get asked a lot because I have some credibility and some background there. The consultant game.
Okay.
The 24/7 media, the politics is not cyclical anymore. It is every day. You can't turn it off.
Right.
It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and you have consultants that are making millions and millions of dollars that are in the ears of every politician today. And there's a lot of influence there. And again, probably a whole other conversation, but and I don't want to blame, consultants are good too.
Right.
Karl Rove was kind of, what he did to help George W. Bush was gets a lot of focus, and he became a true media star based upon, him being a really good consultant. And there was consultants before Karl, but I think since Karl, consultants have been able to become darlings of the press and have become media stars and have been able to do very well financially because of it. And that has influenced politicians.
Sure.
And you can say polling, politicians look at polling. Yeah, they do some, but just what listeners and what people are would need to hear is most politicians, when they get to a statewide level, congressional level, federal level, they have somebody in their ear that is saying, well, if you do this, if you push the yay or nay button, if you push the yay, let me tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the direct mail piece that's going to be showing up in your district. It's very influential because those people are the people that got that individual elected, and they have more influence than I think most voters realize. Yes, voters are listening to constituents and to the grassroots. Sure. But at the end of that event, they're picking up the phone when they're driving back home and they're calling their consultant. And by the way, that's not going to change. You're not putting that genie back in the bottle.
Sure.
There are some politicians that are wealthy enough that they just don't care. I don't think that's real healthy either, but I will say that you do see some of that. And I think that's the other part of politics that is becoming much more influential, is you now have candidates running that can self-fund their own campaigns, and they're saying, hey, I'm not influenced by outdoor groups.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's healthy and sometimes it's not, because I don't want just millionaires being elected to office.
Right.
I want the retired teacher that wants to be up here at 23rd and Lincoln.
Right.
And so it's maybe why I've gotten a little bit more cynical about politics. I've been doing it a really long time. And, as far as people throwing, I
maybe not that extreme, but
I haven't had a shoe thrown at me like I've seen other politicians. But I will say that the example that I do give is year one in office, I was the Secretary of Tourism and Branding to start.
Okay.
No other statewide elected official was the Secretary of Branding. But Oklahoma didn't really have a brand. At least our state agencies. We weren't uniformly branded.
Got it.
And again, that was my background. I kind of one of the things I ran on. And so, we got 200 volunteers around the state. We created this brand, and then we got pushback. And I just wasn't ready for it. I wasn't,
like just mean people.
Yeah, just mean people. I think everybody thought we were going to change the flag and change the. When we started putting up new welcome signs, they were like, "Well, he's actually doing this." Like, yes, I'm actually doing that. And I was naive to think that everybody was going to love the
new
logo,
brand
the new brand. That's never going to happen. It doesn't matter what it is.
Right,
and I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with it, and it's worked really well. But early on we got some pushback.
Yeah.
And I just was very naive to that because it was very early on. So it wasn't a policy, but I probably did institute something in Oklahoma that was like the most black and white thing you could possibly do. Like, you're either going to love it or you're not going to love it.
And you were the lead on this.
I was
so
the
you were
lead,
getting
man.
all the flack.
I was the man. I was, yeah. And most politicians don't get into to talk about marketing and sales and marketing. And so that was also new for, voters. What are we doing here? Well, we're saving over $1 million a year because now not every state agency is creating their own logo every other year.
Right.
That's what we're doing. And so some consistency, some uniformity, and the new mark for the state gives us an opportunity to talk about how diverse we are and all the different landscapes. And so it's worked, but that's we got some pushback there.
Give me one story, Matt. You're being vague right here. Just give me one story if it comes to you.
Yeah. So I think the other big project that we took on was during COVID.
Okay.
We chose to spend some COVID relief dollars renovating our welcome centers. And I had a lot of people like, what are we doing? Again, we've got people dying.
Yeah.
Sure. And you're renovating a bathroom. I'm like, well, if you want to stop global pandemic, we should probably start with the public restrooms in the middle of the country.
Right.
And and the touchless features that every taxpayer is demanding today. So I guess the pushback or the questions that people have asked me, I'm just doing things and I'm involved in things that really not a lot of politicians have been involved in before. Fixing the bathrooms in our state parks. I've been dubbed the public restroom czar of the state of Oklahoma. And, my staff, kind of rolls their eyes. But I'm okay with that because I'm able to go to a high school and talk to kids and say, listen, I am your lieutenant governor, and I'm in charge of bathrooms in the state of Oklahoma. And if they were on their phones, they're not on their phones anymore. They're like, who is this guy? And who's this loser?
I love it.
And then hopefully by the end of the conversation, like, oh, okay, I it's good to know that you got politicians that bathrooms is not above them in their positions.
Sure.
So hopefully there's a leadership lesson there. And if that's all people remember from my 8 years in office, then so be it.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a servant leadership story there. Yeah. But I still get people asking me all the time, why are we doing this? Yeah.
We're going to transition to why people love you. I have several friends. Libby, we just...
Oh, yeah, Libby's awesome.
Yeah. People, I have yet to meet somebody. We know the Gathering Place people really well with Andrea and Katie Ritchie and some of these. I don't know how well you...
Yeah, I know Andrea well.
Literally, all these people have nothing bad to say about you, Matt. Well, are you giving him Kool-Aid before, behind this? What is going on? Why have you been so likable? Why have you been not only influential in the state and doing things and moving that needle, but why do people really rally behind you? Why do people enjoy interacting with you?
It's very kind for you to say that. I tried to hire Andrea, by the way, early on.
Did you?
There's a story there too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
because I knew she was awesome.
Andrea used to be my neighbor.
Okay.
So I know Andrea and Patrick and their little girl Eloise really well.
Yeah.
So
I tried to hire her early on at tourism. So I can just tell you one thing right off the top. You can look at how some politicians, their words matter. Words matter. I have never been someone that has led with harsh words, being unkind, using that as an advantage, being a bully. That will get you elected sometimes in America today because, again, I think people want warrior spirits and,
Sure.
and you know, and I get that. They want to know where their politicians stand on issues, but I going back to where this conversation started, how I was raised, my life experiences, I've never been comfortable as a politician leading that way. My Twitter handle, I talk about always stay humble and kind. There's a
By the way, I
famous
love that you still said Twitter.
I do. I still say Twitter. Sorry, X or whatever you want to talk today. It's still Twitter to me. There's a very famous country song about always stay humble and kind. And listen, I'm not good at that every day, but my staff knows that theme of my office, and so humility and kindness goes a long way. And I think Republicans, Democrats, and Independents have seen that in me. And I'm not always going to make them proud of their state government, but for the most part, I think I am. And so I think that's a big part of it. And I have people that come up to me and tell me that often, hey, just thank you for the way you're leading.
Right.
And that helps me go from Monday to Friday.
I'm sure.
Particularly inside of this building. Because it is not as much Republican, Democrat here if we can drop our egos. And not always have to be winning and being right or being told by a consultant that we have to be mean to this person.
Sure.
And again, that's one of the reasons that, culturally, if things don't change much, I mean, listen, I'm going to be handing the baton off to other people. There's going to be a moment here in the next year or so where a lot of people are going to have to make decisions. And again, I will be just fine going back to the private sector if that is the decision that me and my family make, because voters may want something else. And right now it seems that, again, culturally, that's what we're looking for. I'm always going to be me. I'm not going to change that to get a few more votes or influence a few more people in the wrong way.
Right.
I want to lead differently.
Wow. I love that. I think that you're going into, maybe in your own words, the final stretch here. We're getting close to the final stretch. It doesn't sound like you have a decision quite yet on, am I staying?
Right.
Am I staying in office somewhere? Am I going to try to get in another position somewhere, or wanting to go back to the private sector? What does your family want you to do?
I think they would like me to go do something else.
Really?
After these 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do something else in the private sector?
Yeah,
okay.
Private sector. And I say my family, my oldest is a senior, so she's going off to college next year. And so she's very opinionated. I've got a couple others that are a little younger. They think it's cool that dad's in politics. My son is a freshman in high school, and I think I could see him. He's a lot like me. I could see him having a little political bug. Lisa wants me to be happy. Okay. She wants me to be, whatever the job is, she wants me to be present. Right. Whether I'm governor or working for an advertising firm, she just wants me to be present when I'm home. I mean, it's not real complicated for a lot of spouses, and I think too many guys overcomplicate that. If you're present, if you're able to treat your spouse like a spouse and not a roommate, you're getting there. You're going to get there. Yeah. And so the decision really is mine. She's not going to tell me you can't do this, and I don't want to make her do that. So the decision will be mine. Right. But as I said, I didn't get into this job to climb the political ladder. I love politics, always have, and it's been very good to me. But I ran for lieutenant governor because it's a sales job, and I wanted to make Oklahoma a more appealing state for Oklahomans first. That's really important. And other people looking at Oklahoma, because our perceptions the perception that people have of Oklahoma is either I don't know what's there or I do have a negative perception. And you're not going to change that overnight. Sure. But I think what we have done over the last 5 years and what we'll do for the rest of our time in office is really help change that narrative. Sure. So that we, can hand the baton off to other people so that people know that Oklahoma is the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Because I think it is.
Oh,
I really
agree
do.
with you.
I mean,
I agree with you.
God bless Kansas. I'm glad I'm not the lieutenant governor there.
Yeah. I see you at Atlas. I see you at these grand openings, these ribbon cuttings. What do you're bouncing around? You're excited about a lot of things happening in Oklahoma. What are you personally excited about? Obviously, it sounds like you've been excited about restrooms, but whether you like it or not, but like, what are things like right now, like top of the mind? What are you excited about?
It's a great question, because that enthusiasm is real. Again, I mean, I take a pop shot at Kansas and some of these other states. I mean, I don't mean too much, but the reality is, and this is just true, if you were in that room with that Atlas rebrand and Libby on the front, row, who's just a world changer, and you saw that room full of future software engineers and what they're going to do to help transform the city of Tulsa, like, we're on to something as a state. And we have world-class cities in Oklahoma that are on top 10 lists for entrepreneurs. People want to move to these communities once they see it with their own eyes. That's why we talk so much about tourism, because it's just the best front door to economic development. Just get people to Tulsa to hit Route 66, or to go to the Bob Dylan Center, Philbrook. I mean, I go on and on about what's all in Tulsa. Same deal in Oklahoma City. These are world-class cities that we have built. And the key point here, because we've invested in them, taxpayers have chosen to invest in Tulsa and Oklahoma City and other communities around the state, but those are the economic engines of the state of Oklahoma. And so we wouldn't have been sitting in that room and even had an Altus or a Libby that chose to still live in Oklahoma if Tulsa hadn't invested in themselves. If you didn't have a George Kaiser, if you didn't have a city that is rallied around, a Tulsa vision plan for the city, or Oklahoma City Maps program over here in Oklahoma City. So I have to start there and remind people that's why Oklahoma has been able to do what we're doing now. So I'm really excited about the investment that's made. And so the quality of life. I mean, we launched a Live in Oklahoma campaign where we are running ads in the Dallas Metroplex area telling young families why they need to be living in Oklahoma. We have we got billboards up saying if you lived in Oklahoma, you'd be home by now, because it's true.
The traffic and everything else.
So we're putting that in their face that you don't want to be stuck in traffic for a couple hours. You can't live in a home of an affordable house. You don't know what a backyard is. Let me show you what a backyard is. Come to Oklahoma. And so I'm super excited about that. There was new census migration data. I know that's kind of wonky, but census net migration data that was released last month that showed that Oklahoma was number 9 in the country in net migration growth between June of 22 to July of 23. So we had more people move to the state of Oklahoma than left Oklahoma. Top 9, number 9 on that list. But even cooler than that, wild. We actually attracted more Texans than Texas attracted to Oklahoma.
Is that billboard? You'd be home by now.
You'd be home by now. So we had more people move from Texas to Oklahoma than from Oklahoma to Texas over that year period. That wasn't a month. That wasn't 2 months. So it's real. It shows a real trend. And I don't know the last time we could say that. And so Texas is full. And they see that we have a very affordable state. We got great affordable energy. That's another thing that I'm very excited about in this state. 40% of our energy is off renewables in the state of Oklahoma. I love our oil and gas industry, but we're very diverse with our energy grid. Companies love that. That's why we have Google here. That's why Boeing and the Lockheed Martins love our aviation and aerospace industry. That may be the one other industry, and the one other thing that I would mention that gets me excited is that, yes, oil and gas is the number 1 industry in our state. I love that. Aerospace and aviation is number 2. And it very well could be the number 1 industry in our state in future decades. Those are high-paying jobs that a lot of the kids growing up in this state are going to be able to find jobs at a lot of big defense industry contractors. Again, I mentioned Lockheed Martin, Boeing. They're all here. They're here because Oklahoma truly is a pro-business state. I can't believe I said pro-business. It's that, throw out those talking points, right? Those buzzwords.
You're fully political right now.
and I say that. I apologize that I said Oklahoma's pro-business. But let me tell you what that actually means. And prove it to you that we actually are. And then, you start seeing some heads
Right.
nodding, because
Right.
I think we have more momentum today as a state than we ever have before in state history. I truly believe that. The net migration to the middle of the country is real. And if we don't get them, they're going to Des Moines, Iowa. They're going to Bentonville,
Sure,
Arkansas.
sure.
I'm not talking about Dallas or Houston anymore.
Right.
I'm talking about Wichita, Kansas. I'm
Right.
talking about Bentonville. I'm talking about Des Moines. Those are the cities that are competing for our talent as much as Dallas and Houston is anymore.
Sure.
And that's great. That's great for us, because if people want to come live the American dream, it is real here, and we can prove it to you.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the
Thank you,
podcast.
man. Yeah.
You're doing great things.
Thank you, brother.
You have a fan here. I
Thank
know
you, man.
earlier I talking about people who love you. I love you.
Yeah.
So thank you. I focused a lot on your family, because I know that was something that's very true in my world currently, and I know that matters a lot to
absolutely.
you as well.
Absolutely.
So it's not all about politics; it's about the home as well.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that is not what I'm known for. At the end of my life, it's Matt Pinnell, politician. I hope that it's more than that.
Yeah.
If it's more than that, then I've succeed
love
in this the very short time that we have here on this earth.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I
Thanks, man.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
You got it.